Has what Obama's been doing lately, talking about innovation, competitiveness, and winning the future, speak to his efforts to try to get the United States involved in economic statecraft as well?
I think Obama is responding both to a changed state in the world, which your last question touched on, and I think he's also reacting to a changed political environment following the midterm elections in November. As we're speaking today, Mark, the president, I think, has just concluded a talk at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, which represents a somewhat new constituency for him in his presidency. And in his remarks last week at Penn State University, he was addressing a young audience, an audience concerned for the future. And it was very clear in those remarks that the president was emphasizing innovation, entrepreneurship, and the ability to prosper in this area of green business for securing the future.
So all of this is been coalesced in the phrase finding a Sputnik moment. Do you think that's an apropos metaphor for what we're talking about?
Well, that's a very good question, Mark, and I have two answers to it. It really it depends on the audience one has in mind. The United States, historically over the last 60 years and throughout the nation's history, has shown a remarkable ability to respond to challenges, to gather its energies, and to come through difficult times, whether it was the Depression or whether it was World War II or some of the economic malaise of the 1970s. There is a capacity to respond to difficulty productively. I think Sputnik moment is a catchphrase that the administration is using to try to focus on the fact that there really is a challenge here, and it involves retraining a workforce for a new world of business. It involves a new field of competition where the international forces are felt more directly and where large numbers of talented, energetic young workers are coming onto the global workforce in India and China and elsewhere. So as a rallying point, saying Sputnik moment is understandable to the U.S. public, and it signifies a need for change and gathering energies. However, in terms of the global relationship with China, I'm not sure that it is a completely apt or exactly fair comparison to the Chinese. It does imply that somehow, although the president did not specifically name China in his remarks, I think it was clear to most listeners that that's the country that he had in mind. We are not in a situation currently with China where you have a country that is aiming to beat the United States in a win-lose technology battle. The apter comparison is that there are two nations, both of whom face very substantial but different problems, both of whom need a healthy environment for their future societies, and both of whom stand to gain by marshaling energies within their own countries for what can be a sustainable and realistically based global partnership.
Okay, well, let's talk specifically about that in terms of the U.S. Department of Energy's Innovation Hubs and also the U.S. China Clean Energy Research Centers and how that might be a concrete way in which this cooperation takes place.
Good, thank you, Mark. In November 2009, President Hu and President Obama, during one of their three meetings together, agreed on joint research centers where some of the challenges that can only be solved through partnership will be identified and collaboratively worked upon. In the United States, 3 centers have been created. They're each funded. The U.S. centers are funded by U.S. sources. They have corresponding or counterpart centers in China that are funded by Chinese sources. The 3 in the United States are in clean coal, led by the University of West Virginia, in electric vehicles, again, a public-private consortium, this one led by the University of Michigan, and a building efficiency clean energy research center based in California and led by the Lawrence Berkeley National Lab. Although leadership of these 3 centers is in the hands of either universities or, in the case of Berkeley, a national lab, these are very robust job promotion and, investment promotion and job creation efforts. All of the consortiums are not only open to business, but are strongly supported by a range of businesses. And these are a concrete platform for both focusing the energies in the U.S., getting them outside of Washington, getting them into select regions of the country that have a capability in these industry areas, but also doing so in a partnership format that, according to negotiated protocols, protects intellectual property, spreads the commercial benefit, and helps address the global problems.
And what about what's going to be the nature of the cooperation with China?
Well, the first step in the cooperation is actually the joint creation of the centers that I've mentioned. For each of the 3 centers, clean coal, clean vehicles or electrical vehicles, and building efficiency that I just identified in the U.S., there is a corresponding counterpart clean research center in China. They're working on common problems. So at the January summit where President Hu Jintao came to Washington, what Obama and Hu did, or more specifically what Energy Secretary Stephen Chu and the Chinese minister agreed to do, was they agreed on the work plans and the priority of effort and funding that their corresponding research centers would undertake going forward for the next year.
Okay, and the output of those centers will be what in terms of just research, or will they be developing projects that will involve manufacturing or other work that the U.S. and China will do together?
Yes, they're specifically designed not to be the traditional ivory tower research effort. The primary objective of all of these centers in the United States is investment, promotion, and job creation. So the architecture and design of the centers is to bring together under one roof some of the best researchers in the country to address each of these 3 specific areas, and then through a consortium effort with financial institutions and with private sector companies and with trade associations, and to get the research innovation out of the lab and into the marketplace, supporting jobs and attracting investment.
Will the jobs investment be in China or in the U.S.?
The Chinese funded and led centers will be having that benefit in China. The U.S. funded and led centers in the U.S. will be creating jobs and promoting investment in the U.S., but the two countries will be working towards a common set of goals and objectives.
Okay, why don't we wrap up by talking about the phrase winning the future in the context that we've been discussing, U.S. China energy cooperation. What do you see as winning the future meaning in terms of what we've been talking about?
I think winning the future essentially involves appealing to the capacity in America to change and to recognize that change is inevitable and to embrace that change through innovation, through hard work, and through partnership. So my take, having listened with interest to the president's speech last week, is that it's really a top-to-bottom effort that involves refocusing our education for the future, our innovation towards a greener future and a more entrepreneurial future, and to rebuild an infrastructure which we've allowed over the last half century to get down at the heels. There are newer emerging economies around the world that have the benefit of a first-rate technology. I think winning the future means that the United States recognizes that it deserves a first-rate infrastructure, and to turn that over to a future generation, we've got some work ahead of us.
Do you think the United States has the will and the institutions to win the future?
Well, it's clear that the United States does not have the static, free, single message will that the Politburo or the Standing Committee of the Chinese Communist Party can speak with and enforce throughout its entire society. We're a different society. We come from a different history, and it is a more complex, sometimes people say messy process with democracy and with the protection of rights and liberties that are enshrined in our country. So it's not as clear a manifestation of will as is apparent on the Chinese side. Do I believe that we have the capacity to gather our national will and to succeed in this? I absolutely do.
Okay, good. Well, I want to thank you for your work in helping to facilitate that process and for talking about it with us today on eTopia News.
So it's a pleasure, Mark. Look forward to the next time. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.